Hi, my name is Greg Jameson, and I am with Web Stores Limited. I run a program each week called Web Stores University, where I sit down and I talk to someone about some interesting things that are going on with e-commerce. And this week, my guest is Stan Baldwin, and Stan runs a company where he does some 3D printing. I think 3D printing has the real potential to totally disrupt e-commerce as the way we know it today. Certainly, there are people that are getting into doing things. Even Amazon has done some things where they're talking about doing 3D printing on their truck as they're delivering it to you and so forth. But before we get into all the technicalities, Stan, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what kinds of exciting things you're doing with 3D printing?
Okay, so I'm Stan Baldwin. My company is 3D PT, and I do 3D printing on demand as well as my own design work. I'm specializing right now in printing items for people with disabilities. So I printed like the enable prosthetic hand, as well as I make my own line of fidgets for people on the autism spectrum. And I also do printing on demand through 3D hubs right now. And I'm just looking to grow and expand my company from there.
Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned prosthetics and so forth. I think that clearly the medical community is one area. 3D printing is already making some huge impact, and it's only going to continue to grow. I know that the last time I actually had to get a crown on my tooth, that the dentist was able to 3D print that right in his office.
Yeah.
It used to be that, you would wait 2 or 3 weeks for them to send it out, and somebody would sculpt the thing by hand, and then they'd come back and glue it into your mouth, and now they do it all in one visit. I also heard recently about someone, I don't remember who it was now, but a friend had to do a knee replacement, and in the past, those knee replacements have all been made out of titanium or whatever, and basically pre-made. But what they did is they somehow scanned this person's knee and 3D printed a replacement part that was an exact replica of their knee rather than just some generic part. And as a result, the healing time was greatly reduced.
Yeah, with medical printing, that's the biggest field of advancement for 3D printing is going to be in medicine, just because you could do the custom items without all the extensive skill sets from a traditional prosthesis or prostheticist. You could take any 3D scan, like a PET scan or a CAT scan of a knee or a brain or a skull, and just mirror the good parts and draw up what you want and use that to create a healthy counterpart. And so I've seen it for the tooling that goes into putting in a knee replacement, making the custom jigs, as well as now bioprinting. So in the future, probably within the next 10 years, bioprinting, where you actually print with living cells, is going to be medically approved. And it's already been tested, and it's at University of Wakefield, where they've actually printed up a prototype kidney and bladder. So bioprinting is within the next 10 years going to be FDA approved.
Yeah, I had heard that, and I think that that's something that it's really cool, I think that one of the things that could very well happen is that even amputees and stuff, now you're talking about, hey, let's be able to replace a leg or an arm or whatever because of bioprinting, as you said. And you can really print with a lot of different materials already. It seems like the most common thing, of course, is plastics, but I know that there are people that are printing with metals and various.
Yeah, let me get some samples of that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I've got a couple of examples of things around here as well, but all mine tend to be plastic things right now. Although, and I guess it's been a couple years ago now that I was actually out at Autodesk, and they had a complete 3D printed motorcycle that they had done,
Mm-hmm.
which was, a combination of obviously both plastics and metal.
Mm-hmm. So to give you an idea, this is a Enable prosthetic hand, and it's fully articulate, so you can bend the fingers. And this is sized up to fit me. And you can make it, this is made out of what's called XT, which is commercial plastic. But you can make it out of other materials like, let's see. I've got it. So this dark one is cork fill. So this is cork wood with a little bit of plastic binder. And this is stainless steel. And these are already commercially available to 3D printers. So there's already people printing with different materials already. And I have some others that are just buried. And it's just a full range of materials, and it just depends on the properties you want from them. Because like this one's a little bit grayer. I don't know if that shows up on their screen. This one is iron fill. And so you can print with that, and you could do cool effects with it, like make it rust and look weird. And actually, a lot of people are doing that with this material. And I've got, here's fiberglass. So here's another sample of that's in fiberglass. And this was a sample that I tested for a company. But you could print this, and this is stiffer than normal plastic. So the range of materials that you can make things with is already there. And there's also carbon fiber and new types of plastic coming out every day.
I read an article, it's probably been 6 months ago now, but I thought it was interesting about how 3D printers can print 3D printers, which means that basically they're self-replicating.
Yeah, that's a project I've got up there. A guy in Holland sent me files for a folding printer.
Yeah,
so,
and the other thing that 3D printers are already doing as well is printing food.
Yeah, technically it's a little different to do that because you have to have a different extruder. So basically they just have a syringe that they use air pressure to control. But there's like the MakerBot and a couple others that do that. Plus you can modify a normal printer to do that.
Yeah. Have you ever tasted anything that's come out from one?
I haven't done it, and I've talked about doing that. It's just, again, you have to modify an extruder head to do that. So
yeah, I just was wondering if it tasted any good, because it's basically what you're talking about. Even though the process is still slow compared to what we've seen in science fiction, it's basically the Star Trek replicator.
Yeah, so that's everyone's favorite thing that they think of is, oh, it does it like that. Print times, like here's a bow tie. This took about 2 hours to do correctly because first couple times was a little tricky. But, it's anywhere from 2 hours to 15 minutes depending on the piece.
Right, yeah, so the technology is still fairly early on in the process, I think, even though it's been out for a few years now. It seems like it is.
Yeah, the problem with the material is just going to be the material in terms of viscosity and how it forms and cools. That's setting the limit for what different types of printers can do. So like, for example, my printer uses what's called a filament. And the cooling rate and how fast you can print with this limits the speed that you can print. So that's the main limit for the commercial desktop printers. Because the machines can go faster, obviously. But just in terms of how fast this stuff can print out, that's setting the limit for the machines. So that's for what are called FDM or FFF printers, which are like your MakerBots, LesBots, all those. And so newer technologies are coming out like the SLS printers and the carbon printers that could do it do the same print in 5 minutes. And those machines are, unfortunately, right now, they're really commercial and industrial machines.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting, though, is that, again, this has probably been 6 months ago now, but one of my friends said that he saw a 3D printer at Sam's Club.
Yeah.
So it is becoming, even though it's still early on in the process, it's starting to become viable for people to do this.
Yeah, that was probably the MakerBot Mini. MakerBot's is the most famous 3D printing company, but they have one of the worst printers on the market. Their strength has always been in marketing and sales. So they've been selling through Sam's Club for a while, but last time I went to my Sam's Club, they didn't have it on the shelf. So between that and all the problems MakerBot's had, that's more than anything else, it's bad company than bad as much as it is bad printer. So
let's actually take a step back here, because you're familiar with technology and I'm familiar with technology. The people that are watching this may not be, and so I just want to kind of describe a little bit about 3D printing and the fact that I come from a CAD/CAM background years ago, and basically what we were doing at that point in time, if you wanted to manufacture a part, is you would take a solid object and you would cut away at it in order to create that object that you had designed with your CAD system. What a 3D printer does is it builds things up layer by layer until it's an additive process, basically. And because of that, you can actually create things that are not possible with a subtractive process like a traditional computer-aided manufacturing thing. And somewhere here, I've actually got a ball. I'll see if I can find it here in a minute, but got a ball where it's a ball inside of a ball inside of a ball, and there's seams because of the fact that since you're building this stuff up, you're able to create these kind of parts that were not possible to be manufactured before.
Yeah, so that's something like this. This is one of the fidgets I make online. And so just trying to do this would be very hard to do with a CNC lathe or a drill press, but printing it up layer by layer would make this geometry much easier. Same with this. This actually prints in a vertical piece like this, but it's so thin you can't mill this. So you have to build it, either weld it together, or again, you have to print it in layers, top from the bottom up.
Yeah. Yeah, so that really opens up design possibilities, I think, for products that we haven't previously even imagined. And I think one of the things, let's talk here a little bit about the e-commerce aspect of this, because you've got people that, pretty much in any industry now, we talked about medical, we talked about food and so forth, pretty much anything that you can conceive of, sometime probably in the next 10 years, as you indicated, we're going to be able to manufacture that, and perhaps even manufacture it right in our own homes, rather than having to go off and order it on Amazon.
Yeah, so there's already file sharing sites where you could download things for free. So that's Thingiverse, Magazine, and those online sites. And they have thousands and close to millions of free files. So that's for anything like, cheap toys. So instead of going to Toys R Us and spending, $20 for a little thing like this, you could print it up for, 5 cents. And, your kid's going to destroy it no matter what. Then that way, it's a cheap it's a toy that you make for a kid. So you can see where it came from, and that you can source all the materials. And also, again, it's just cheaper and far more affordable. You can also do, I've got a video, I think, on my YouTube channel where I show how it's used in my house. We renovated our kitchen recently, and so I put new light switch covers, sink drains that I custom designed to fit our sink, and night block and a few other things. And so you could put things in your home instead of going to IKEA or, Home Depot and buying them. And again, the cost-wise, the price point is much lower in terms of material, because the plastic runs anywhere from a nickel a gram to 50 cents a gram, depending on how fancy you get. And you can make custom products for your home as well. So you could see, is that even showing up?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see I put some custom lettering. This is just a coaster I'm doing. And so you could put custom lettering on it, or draw up your own designs real quick. Or make this is a gift I make for some other people. This is a gift card holder. So I just hot glue a magnet in the back. And you can make things like this. So I'm real popular at Christmas time in my family now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, just the idea is in the future, within every home or every other home, there's just some 3D printer that can make just about everything for your house. And again, that saves you time and money from going to the hardware store and trying to find the piece. Or you buy it instead of buying it matte on, commercially and then trying to like paint it or match it to your decor. You print it up in your decor. Like if you have blue wall, you print up a blue light switch cover. So that's the other big thing, is just making it for your house instead of trying to go to IKEA and get, the package deal that doesn't really match your style or taste.
Yeah. So with all of these products you're talking about, you can already download, all kinds of products. One of the things that I think is going to be interesting here as we move forward in the next 10 years is I want to download a Lamborghini and print it in my house. Mm-hmm. Now, the reality is that from a technical standpoint, you can do that, obviously. From a legal standpoint, you've got design considerations there. Lamborghini doesn't want you doing that, obviously, or anybody else. I'm obviously talking about something expensive there, but the fact is that this is going to really impact e-commerce in ways that we probably can't even foresee right now, because people are already, they're sharing music files, they're sharing movie files, things that we never thought of as being digital in the past are digital now. And in the next 10 years, everything is going to be digital. There's going to be absolutely nothing that is not digital. Mm-hmm. The whole legal aspect of this, copyright laws and trademark laws, the lawyers are going to have a heyday.
Oh, yeah. No, that's already being worked out a little bit. A lot of the current law is being applied to the Digital Millennial Rights Copyright Act, DMCA. So a lot of people are trying to say, 3D files should fall under that. But the idea that you could copyright a physical object that's transmitted digitally is really where the legal turmoil is. And that's an issue right now because there's been issues. There's a scandal recently where a guy was online on eBay selling 3D prints he just stole off of Thingiverse. And he stole like 1,000 of them, and he was just printing them out. He didn't have they were all creatively under Creative Commons non-commercial licenses. So they were basically, you could print them for yourself, but you can't sell them. And this guy just went on eBay and just dumped them all online. And the whole 3D printing community reacted and basically shut him down. But it's only through a big action like that anything has happened in 3D printing. Because there's a difference. This prosthetic hand is released open source with permission for anyone to print. But other things like, what is it? My Little Pony is the example. There's a site called My Mini Factory where the My Little Pony figures are being printed. And what happened with that is it was originally a trademark copyrighted thing, so no one could print it legally. And instead of fighting it, the animators and the company that owns My Little Pony basically set up their own account and decided to sell the file themselves. So if you go to My Mini Factory, you can now buy Sparkle Pony and all that as like an MP3 file where you just buy it like in iTunes. And so there is a business model being established where people could sell files digitally, just like a music file. And that's one path that's going to grow more in the future, is designers will sell their files, but we have to face reality that there's a dark net and people are going to pirate and share the files no matter what. So definitely the idea of copyright is going to be demolished, if not very threatened in the future. Also, Creative Commons, which is a lot of where the open source movement is sharing files with. Creative Commons is also going to face a lot of challenge in the future.
Yeah, the really good thing about this, though, is that there's a couple things. One is, from a consumer, I can just, with My Little Pony, for example, I can buy that digital file, like you said, just like you can buy an MP3 file or whatever from iTunes, and I can print the thing, and I no longer have to worry about next day shipping or 2 day shipping or whatever. I got it.
Yeah.
And I can print it out right there. So that whole wait time thing is something that goes away. I thought it was interesting when Amazon came out saying that they were going to have these vans running around with 3D printers in it, so that when people would order something, they could print it on the way to your house type thing. And it's like, that business model is not going to last long at all, because people are going to have printers in their house and just buy the digital file, download it, and print it. But
no, I don't see putting a 3D printer in a moving van working at all. It's pretty much, a lot of times you need your printer as steady as possible. So
yeah, well, they were just trying to jump the gun here a little bit and make sure that they stayed ahead of the curve, I think. But from an economic standpoint, I think the thing that's really cool is that in this country, we don't make anything. We ship it all overseas.
Yeah.
And what we're really good at is we're good at design and creating things, and then we let the Chinese and the Japanese duplicate the stuff that we come up with.
Exactly.
We're no longer going to have to rely on foreign manufacturers. We can just do what we're really good at, which is designing products and manufacture them right here. So we may be bringing back that whole thing that we've lost to Asia over the years.
Yeah, exactly. Because with 3D printing, it's more practical to print locally than it is to try and send it out and back. You could do your prototyping, so if you want to design different things, you could design it, and then you could also small batch print. So that's going to be a big economic thing, is if you only need 200 or 300 units printed up, instead of trying to find someone that'll do it for you in China, you just go down the street to your local company that does bulk printing and have them print up 200 or 300 units. So that's actually part of my business, is bulk printing and small batch production. That way, if you just need 200 or 300 test units made, then you could print locally, not have to try and deal back and forth. Yeah. And again, like you're saying, it keeps the production within the United States, which is another big strength of 3D printing. Is it's just more practical to make something locally and send it out. And that's what 3D Hubs does. So 3D Hubs is a site where people look for other printers and then send the file out to them to print and ship. And so I've done that, and I've had people locally print with me, and I've had a couple people out of state send me orders. And again, just the production turnover time, I could print and ship in a day. Whereas, if you tried to deal with China, you'd have to buy 500 units from overseas, and you'd have to deal back and forth with all that. Yeah,
so it's definitely going to be a disruptive technology. As we said, it might be kind of in its infancy still, but in the next 10 years, it's going to change the way that we all buy and sell products.
Exactly.
what do you, thinking of that, let's take a small boutique shop somewhere that sells kitchen gadgets. How do you see that looking 10 years from now? Let's put our crystal balls on. We'll 3D print a crystal ball.
Okay, so so with that, like a boutique shop that sells kitchen equipment, you're going to see, they're going to have a dozen or so machines in-house that are printing up small batches of custom designs. So they're going to design their own fancy spoon that actually, sticks to the side of the pot or whatever, and kitchenware that has their logo on it and also has like two functions, like a strainer stirrer thing. So every shop is going to have its own custom designs that attract people. Plus, they're going to be able to advertise and put things on the product itself. So they'll be able to put their logo on the product directly. And that way it's another selling point. And you can also say, hey, look, I got mine at mom and pop shop. And, ooh, where'd you get that? Ooh. And you could do all sorts of things. Like you could actually, I've seen people embed QR codes into a 3D print. So you could actually scan it and you could order online or do anything like that, as well as look up information. And the price point for the product is going to be lower. So it's only going to cost you 10 cents to make it in-house. And then you mark it up to like $5 for a kitchen spoon. So you've made a decent profit margin on that. So that's going to help.
Yeah.
And, the savings gets passed on to the customer because they make it in-house, so they don't have to deal with the shipping or the import tax or anything like that.
And I think that the people that are going to be buying things online, just buying the design file, that obviously there's going to be a huge profit margin in that. If you have a really good design for something and people want to buy it, it's like an MP3 file. It doesn't cost you any more incrementally to sell other ones. So if you're selling the design file for $5, it's $5 profit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where a lot of designers are going to, is just selling the files like an MP3, which is going to be a viable source of income for a lot of designers in the future, is saying, okay, I've got these designs for comic book parts, cosplay props, or kitchen utensils, or anything else. So if you want to sell an entire set of files for, your own 3D printer, you could do that, or anything else you want. And there are sites already set up to do that. Yeah.
Now, the files, like on all these Creative Commons files and stuff that you talk about, the files that you get, are they compatible across all printers? Like, any printer can print any 3D file, or do they have their own proprietary formats?
There are some proprietary formats, like MakerBot has the Makerware format. There's .obj, and a couple other printers use their own proprietary formats. The main universal file format right now is called stereolithography, or .stl. And if you sell those could go across most printers and are read by the programs. There's a new file format that Microsoft and a bunch of others are trying to push out called 3MF, which will probably be a future standard because it addresses some technical issues with STL. And it also gives you more capabilities to print in multiple colors and dual material formats. So the future is going to probably be STL and 3MF. Other formats are proprietary for closed source printers like MakerBot.
Okay. So I'm not going to keep you here for much longer. Just a couple of quick things. One is, do you have any other products or anything that you want to show people? Things that you've done?
Yeah. Yeah. So with 3D printing, you could do custom things. This is a snack dispenser. So if you just mention a mason jar up here, that it's also a business card holder. So with 3D printing, you could actually design custom things like this. And this took me about half an hour to redesign from another thing. And you could actually do advertising as well. So I just plastered my logo on the back.
Yep.
Let's see. The tie was something someone had published online already. These fidgets that I've shown you are actually test pieces as well that I do for my blog. So I'm online at 3dprinterchat.com. And these are some of the fidgets I sell as well. So this is a spiral bead fidget, and it spins around. So for people on the autism spectrum, they need sensory feedback. And things like this actually provide a lot of that. So that's one of the products I sell online. Let's see. Other things. They're all buried. Yeah, they're all buried in my bag, so you'll have to come and look at my site on 3dpt.club.
Okay, and that was the next thing that I was going to ask you for. So you can go to 3dpt.club and make sure for anyone that's watching this video, that is .club, not .com.
Yeah, no, I missed out on the .com domain.
Okay, so all of your products are for sale on that site then, right?
Yeah, so I sell them online through that as well as an Etsy store, which you can link to in my website.
Great. Well, appreciate your time today. I think that was a lot of awesome information and give people some things to think about. So good luck to you, and we'll keep in touch.
All right, thank you.